Benvenuti e benvenute ad un nuovo episodio di Actually, il podcast che parla del cambiamento che sembra arrivare piano piano e poi ci travolge tutto d'un tratto per uno strano giro di coincidenze. Settimana scorsa, caro il mio Riccardino Bassetto, benvenuto.
Ciao.
Eravamo sempre qua alle OGR, però diciamo, era un po' più casa nostra, era il nostro festival culturale, calabresi, i libri di carta, no? E la brace accesa, direbbe qualcuno, vabbè. E poi invece, quindi dopo i nostri Core Will Days che sono andati alla grande, siamo stati davvero molto 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 felici, ci ritroviamo di nuovo qua, sempre a Torino, città di cui, che vuoi dire, oh, si sta muovendo qua a Torino, succedono un sacco di cose, perché c'è la Tech Week, non è il primo anno, diciamo, che veniamo da queste parti, siamo live, c'è un pubblico con delle cuffie da silent disco di fronte a noi, voi non li
Stai
potete
per
vedere.
lanciare un...
No, non lo faccio, basta, li lanci solo tu,
Ok.
sta roba qua che mi hai detto che è da vecchi lanciare gli applausi, non lancerò mai più un applauso in tutta la mia vita. E quindi chiacchiereremo un po' di cosa? Naturalmente di startup, siamo qua, ci tocca parlare un po' di startup e direi a questo punto, perché ci sta guardando e non capisce niente di quello che stiamo dicendo, iniziamo ad avvicinarci allo switch to English. Ricky, direi fai tu l'introduzione del nostro ospite di oggi.
No, I'm very happy to introduce Yoram from Dealroom. This is the naming code because you have the most difficult surname in the world, I guess. It's you're from the Nordics, of course. It's Wijngaarde, right?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Okay, okay, yeah, easier than I thought.
Yeah, wine
Yoram,
and garden.
welcome
Yep.
to the show.
Yeah, pleasure to be here.
You're the founder and the CEO of Dealroom. This is a platform that tracks all the data from investments of startups and investors on the startups. And each year you come here in Turin for the Tech Week. I'm very fond of the work that you produce because at some point you go on the stage and you click on the clicker and huge slides come up with the numbers of what's happening here in Italy. What's the state of investing in Italy? This is something that has been working very well when I was publishing the slides on my newsletters. So thank you for being on the show.
And thank you for your hat. People listening, you can't imagine, it's an amazing hat. We need to buy one. The title is EU Ink.
Yeah.
We need some EU ink. What's the message there?
Should we talk about it? I mean,
Let's start with the Ink.
Let's go. I think
I'm
sorry.
no, but it's I think it's like I asked the audience, but like when I was on stage, how many people heard about EU Inc. And I thought everybody will raise their hand.
You want to do it again here?
Yeah, let's try it.
Because this is an actually audience.
Raise your hand if you know what EU Inc. is. Ok.
Ok, amici da casa, 4 mani alzate su una sessantina di persone.
So
same numbers, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so it's actually really relevant for Italy, especially. I think like Italy, like Italians founders really need to know about this. EU Inc. is a way to make it much easier to set up a legal entity that is pan-European. And that's not only easier to set up, but also for investors to invest in it because they are familiar with it. And maybe you know that in the US, they also have such a thing. Everybody sets up their startup in Delaware.
Yeah.
Imagine if every startup would set up one in New York and one in Ohio, one in Florida. It would that like the startup ecosystem in the US wouldn't be where it is today. But that's what we're doing in Europe. And EU Inc. is that, and like there are a lot of people that are trying to get this done on a European level. And a year ago, nobody would have believed that this would ever happen, but it got so much momentum that it is now actually happening. The only thing is the details have to matter. It's currently like already being watered down and compromised and kind of not becoming the way it really should be. So something we really have to fight for. But what's interesting, why I'm wearing this hat here, is that especially Italians would massively benefit from this. And like the data that I presented today shows that Italian startups really stand out with how domestically oriented they are. They usually focus on Italy, And if they are international, it's just a few markets. They are rarely global. The teams are also usually just Italians, and they would benefit from being a bit more internationally oriented, also having more international employees. On the stage, I misspoke a little bit by suggesting that EU Inc. also makes it easier to hire. That's not the case, but I think in Italy you should actually go one step further and make that also easier, and kind of totally turn this thing upside down and make Italy like by far the most attractive place to start a startup. It will benefit enormously. There will be people coming here to start a startup and having mixed teams, and you can really turn this thing upside down.
Do you have any insight on like or answers to that condition you were describing about like the Italian startup environment? So like this way of thinking, this national way of thinking. What do you have any insights about it?
But I have a theory about it.
Go for it. No matter.
I hope I will not offend anybody.
No,
but
no, 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 no.
I don't think I
It's a
will.
safe space.
We just offend people here.
I don't think I will actually. Like my theory is just that Italy has a very strong culture, and like it's like one of the most well-known cultures. And I think if you compare it with the Netherlands or Sweden, it's a bit more bland, and so we are like those countries are, they let they make it also they therefore are more international as well, and they learn English more easily. And here, because you have such a strong culture, which everybody loves, but it's also less international because of that, I think.
Quanto è vero, this is so true. I call it la sindrome, typically I call it la sindrome della città più bella del mondo. So I say like it's the most beautiful city in the world syndrome, because it's typically also within Italy, even worse. Like if you come from, don't know, Rome,
Padova.
vabbè, Florence, okay. People born in those places, who are born in those places, even though we don't have anything to do with the realization of those places, with the construction of the ancient Rome. Like, I mean, you're born in 1999 in Italy, like you don't have nothing to do with what people did there 2000 years ago. But we have this syndrome and say, guys, wait a second. Like we live in the best place in the world, so I don't have that much to learn. And typically, when you travel with someone coming from those places, like you go to know in Berlin, and you say you look at and this is Potsdamer Platz. Questa insomma è una piccola che non San Pietro, però la vostra piazza.
San
So
Pietro.
like we typically have this reference, cultural reference to
Yeah.
everything there is in the world. We bring it to what we have here in Italy. Ok, finita la mia analisi sociologica, andiamo sulle startup,
No,
please.
yeah, it's cool. So the EU Inc. is trying to solve this problem of having 27 different states, and this doesn't allow startups to move around easily,
You
to open new markets,
Yeah.
to find new investments from outside.
It's about kind of creating a 28th virtual state, where the startup law is just way more conducive to actually starting a startup. So no complicated notaries, with a cap table system that investors like and understand, and so they can just invest like that, like it is in the US. If investors like you, they just say, okay, I'll do it, and there's a standard note. And you can do things within a week, and you can get on with your startup life and actually build.
Yeah.
Instead of like sometimes it takes a year to just get basic stuff done.
This is a very big problem that we have. So we've set the ground. So you've already said that in Italy we have small teams that are mostly made of Italian people, that are not looking at a global market, but they are looking at a domestic market.
Yeah.
Apart from that, how are things going? Because you've been tracking Italy's investment and Italy's startups for a few years.
Yeah.
What's the trajectory?
Okay, so we predict this year 1 billion euros will be invested in startups.
You predicted last year.
No, we predict now
now you predict now,
that
okay.
for the full year it will be about 1 billion. So we're currently at 700 million or something.
All right.
And so we just extrapolate.
Okay.
It's as simple as that.
What's the trend year on year?
Yeah, so it's kind of flat. It has been around 1 billion already for the last 5 years. There was this one
Weird
weird
peak
Yeah.
at 2 billion, right? At some point.
Yeah, exactly. In 2022, actually 1 year after every other country peaked, funnily enough. And this year you don't have any scale up rounds, so no rounds above 100 million
Okay.
so far, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But despite that, you're still hitting 1 billion.
Because what we've noticed in the last few days, it's these announcements of startups that have raised a few rounds. We have Sostienici like 2 days ago that raised $12 million, 12 million euros. We have Lexroom that raised 16 million euros a Series A.
Jet HR, we announced it.
Exactly, and then we have
Vending.
Jet HR a few weeks ago that raised this big, from our in our terms, round.
Yeah.
So we miss these big rounds, right?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
exactly. And yeah, so I think there's a lot of stuff happening, and 1 billion compared with 10 years ago is still a lot. But it is kind of flat.
Is that it's compared to what is happening in the other parts of Europe, and especially what's happening in the US.
Let's go there for a second. Like, for example, compared to France, are we that far? We are.
So I would say overall, like if you look at investment, it has been in Europe kind of flat already for a few years now. So you see a similar pattern, but this year there's starting to be a bit more activity. So there's a slight uptick in France and in the UK and in Germany, but actually also not that much actually.
Okay.
But in Italy, you just don't see that at all.
In terms of industries, what's happening? Because I feel like AI is dominant.
Flooding the market.
Exactly, but like taking AI first on the side for a moment.
Okay.
AI
Difficult.
could be, yeah, but could be like.
Is there anything left?
Yeah, defense.
Okay.
There's a lot of defense, although a lot of that also is related.
Implies some AI.
Yeah, has some AI. Climate is still big, although maybe not as big as before.
Are they still capable of raising capital? Because there was like this huge hype.
Yeah.
We had like a couple of years, green tech, and so forth and so on.
No, I
They were
mean,
like-
so climate, there's still a lot happening there, and it's actually, so climate is shifting more to stuff like nuclear and like material science, like really advanced stuff, and the things that are a little bit like out of vogue are like like sustainable marketplaces, and scooters, for example, were also considered climate tech, and those things are kind of out of fashion. But actually, like, I personally don't really love this way of talking about the market, because I think it's very VC centric.
All right.
And VCs, they always follow trends, and they throw money at whatever is hot that time. And so these fluctuations, they are interesting, and I understand people want to know it.
Okay.
But it actually doesn't say as much as people give it too much value, in my opinion. Like that's kind of the psychology of VCs that you're measuring, and I prefer to measure fundamentals, like, for example, how many startups are being started, what is the quality of the team, to start with that. And I also presented some data around that. So
go for it. And define quality, because it's pretty complicated.
It's subjective, but there are some ways that you can you have some indicators, and one is the number of founders who start a startup that have worked at a unicorn before.
Okay.
And
this is growing.
That number is growing quite significantly. So in the last 5 years, let me pick here, it was 300 founders.
Okay.
And before that, the previous 5 years, it was 250. And the 5 years before that, it was only 100. So it's a massive increase. And I'm not saying that every of those founders is by definition high quality, but it is an indicator.
A further question on this, like regarding the quality of the team and of the founders. Like, historically, we said, like, in Europe we have founders with either let's say economical backgrounds,
Yeah.
economics, sometimes law, like let's say from humanities. Okay.
Yeah.
While in the US and then especially in China, they're all engineers.
Yeah.
Is it still a thing?
It's a really good question, and I want to look at this and get
Okay.
back to you.
In the next report of Dealroom.
Yeah, but I think it's a great question. Yeah,
Mhm.
because that's really what it's all about. Like, is this engineer, like this engineer that normally would have worked at a large corporate, is be able to raise money and to build these moonshots. Like, that's what's most interesting.
We had,
Eh.
sorry,
No, go ahead.
we had a founder on the other week that came out from Y Combinator, and he told us that all the founders coming out of Y Combinator are only technical.
Yeah.
There's no,
Yeah.
actually, there's no way for a business person to get it accepted into Y Combinator. Then once the technical team gets out of Y Combinator, they start the first business hires, but there's no way to
Yeah.
get there. And he told us that Y Combinator, it's actually the way it's structured right now. It's a huge sales course, sales masterclass, and so they're giving you the tools that you were normally learning in a business school. They're giving you the tools that they're giving the technical founders the tools to be to actually improve on that business side. This is crazy because this is this is why I studied business, and now that I'm ready for the jump, I'm no longer viable for the option.
Well, you can be a co-founder.
Yeah. After YC.
And if we look at the next years and like our trajectory, because you just gave us a photography of what like the state of the art is here in Europe.
Yep.
We've been talking a lot about like our difficult relationship with the numbers coming from the US, those huge numbers that are coming from the US. And like it looks like they're getting bigger and bigger while we're flat and flat. But do you think there could happen something in the next 2 to 5 years? Do you see any trends that like should bring us to be optimistic?
Are you in Italy?
Let's start from Europe,
Europe.
and then
Yeah.
Europe first, and then Italy.
Should we talk about Italy actually, or should we only talk about Europe?
Nah, both. Really,
Okay.
both. And yeah, no, I am really, really optimistic about Europe. Actually, the thing I just showed you about the quality of founders, that's true everywhere in Europe. Like, look at France; it's been completely transformed. Sweden completely transformed. And actually, if you really think like a good investor, you want to be also at some point a bit contrarian. I think like the US is, I noticed something that the people who are most Euro bashing, let's say, are almost always people who don't build anything. And if you look at the people who actually build things, also from the US, they don't have this negative attitude about Europe. They're actually very constructive. So yeah, there is a lot that needs to change, but I think it's the tide is really turning, and everybody's focused on it. Also within Europe, I think they also have still a lot to learn, but I think Europe is really the place that's now really seeing that it has to change its ways. So I'm really optimistic.
Are there any specific countries that you're more optimistic about? Like there has been for sure the France moment, France startup nation, Macron, Station F, and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
I'd say at the present time, we've been talking a lot about the Netherlands, for example, everything what is going on over there. We're a great ASML fan, and
Yeah.
which country would you bet on?
I really don't have a favorite country. I think things can come from unexpected places. And to come back to the EU Inc. thing, I would really, one thing the point I tried to make is it's possible in tech to leapfrog. Like you see in China, they leapfrog us now in in cars. if they would have tried to make this, if they tried to have made another Ferrari, they wouldn't have succeeded, right? So they do something completely different, and now they are winning. And I think in Italy you should try to do the same thing. Like you like Italy is behind, but you can totally turn this upside down by being the most business forward country in Europe. You can yeah, within a few years it can completely turn around.
Yeah, this is something that we all wish. Um, do investors have a role on that? So do you have data on how much
Yeah.
those money are coming from VCs and how much are coming from angel investors that many times are people that have founded other startups and are fostering the ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, yes. So Germany, Sweden, UK, they benefit from, and now increasingly France, they benefit from having a really strong culture when it comes to VCs who are very supportive. I think Italy is also lacking this, but that's just another reason to create EU Inc. because then you can get more of those international founders to come here and set the terms and you know, so
Yeah.
I go with a further question on this because another pretty clear trend to me is that at the moment, like the successful cases that we are having, especially in Italy, uh, the bending spoons, our unicorns, Satispay, and so forth, so on. They're in that planning. Well, that's I ricordo mai. Okay, there's some
and Nucleo was also started.
nucleo as well. Nucleo as well. At some point, when we're talking about like raising 5 millions, 3, 4, 6, 7, 10, maybe 20 family offices, Italian VCs, maybe some UK VCs, some German VCs, when like the real game starts, it's just US VCs. And also we see, and as I speak with a lot of founders, like the main goal of the founder at some point becomes like, yeah, okay, I need to speak with Americans.
Yeah.
There is that moment. Is it actually a trend? Is it something that we have like the real money comes from there? And the goal of many of the European founders is at some point to go and find a spot in the American venture or private equity
I
sector.
think there are a lot of really good VCs in Europe,
Okay.
especially in France, Germany, and the UK, like Sweden, amazing VCs. And I don't, yeah, you know, I would start with that actually, and then maybe later add a US investor. I also know one founder who raised from a bunch of well-known VCs, including the US one, and the US ended up being a nightmare for him. So it's not always like you know, gold, whatever, like green grass is like always greener on the other side.
Exactly.
There are a lot of really good VCs here in Europe. Another thing, by the way, is like I don't know if you guys read Nicolas Collin's posts. He's a writer on LinkedIn. I would really
Nicolas?
great Collin. He's French, a great thinker, and he made one point that I also kind of agree with. It's not only VC that can build Europe's innovation ecosystem. If you look at China, it's done. Everything's done totally different. And this idea that you build Google from a garage, that is one model. And you had just also alluded to it with YC and like you have to be an engineer. There are different roads lead to Rome, and it doesn't always have to be this stereotype. And if you look here in Turin, you have great industry. Also, the organizers behind this conference are very connected. There are other ways to build amazing technology companies. It doesn't always have to be built out of a garage. It can also be a more concerted effort between different. That's how ASML was built. That's how TSMC was built. And I think maybe we don't, especially for this kind of next wave of technology that's more probably more physical and like there's more robotics involved. we should also look at other ways.
Okay.
And I think Italy, that's again a way where Italy can be really, really strong.
If I were Ricardo Haupt, I would ask for a round of applause after after what you've just said, because yeah, if we keep looking at models that don't belong to us, because we in Italy we don't have, in Italy and I would say in Europe we don't have the right policy, we don't have the right culture, we lack something, we're not going anywhere. So the approach that you were suggesting, you were just throwing out there, then you don't have the right recipe for how to do that. But like, let's not follow the Americans. Let's not try to build what the Americans are building. Let's not try to do to mock what they are doing, because they have the capitals, they have the culture, they have the VCs, they have the ecosystem that build up in the years and now created this strong ecosystem. We had OpenAI before you sitting there, and of course they were benefiting from all these years of creating startups. And Sam Altman itself came out of YC, then he became president, and he created the ecosystem. We don't have it, so we have to take another route. We have to do something different.
Like, for some, the traditional startup, VC-backed startup way is a good way, but it doesn't have to be it's not the only recipe. The one thing that you do need, though, is an entrepreneurial culture, and I'm really in favor of having more flexible labor laws. That is a condition for building a really strong culture. And so I hope that together with EU Inc. there is also some reform happening there, so that if you want to join a company where you are kind of hardcore, let's say, that it's, you volunteered, that's what you want. When I was young and I finished school, I also wanted to work my ass off. There are young kids who want to do that, and now we're kind of being, you kind of crazy if you want that. And so I think that's an absolute condition, is to have a strong entrepreneurial culture where people want to work hard and they really see this as a team sport. That is a condition, but it doesn't have to be always VC backed. It can also be done with corporates.
I totally agree with this specific point, and this is probably what we're missing at the moment here, because I'm a bit skeptical, on your position, this idea of saying, okay, no, the Americans, they're doing those sort of things, they're doing innovation tech, and guys, no, we can't compete there, and so let's look at what we have here. And so here in Italy we have this rhetoric, and we say, guardiamo alle eccellenze italiane. And I get so scared, because you see at some point people who were supposed to do tech talking about Parmigiano, and then they say Parmigiano, and they say, but this is the way of thinking that we have here. At some point it becomes tourism, they say this is our petrol, and this is something that we had for so many years, that we thought that our place in the world was just like looking at what we have, and well, we actually should look probably in a different direction, because that part there is something that we already see the results probably of that thing. I don't have a receipt like of where to go, which industries for some, but what you were saying with your last point is like, we need to develop a new way of thinking at the how, not at the what, but at the how. Like, how do we actually rethink our way of being entrepreneurs, of building companies? This is probably something very difficult. And again, this probably starts from, and I look back to my presidente, Barbara, universities, schools, like how we build the minds that will be then the next entrepreneurs.
Yeah, because totally. The mindset and also the policy, because all the bureaucracy that we have, it's probably strangling the founders.
I want that hat. Where can we buy that hat? We want it.
Yeah, Google EU Inc.
EU Inc. and they're selling hats at the end of the day. Okay, we will.
Thank you very much, Yoram. It was amazing to have you on the show. Thank you for giving us all this speranza, all this, come si dice speranza?
It's full of hope. It's full of hope.
You're full of hope, and we really need that. And let's start from hope, and then let's build something on top of the hope.
Obama siamo diventati. Vabbè. Thank you so much, Yoram. Grazie a tutti e a tutte. Alla prossima. Ciao.